Next up on the list, Lexus. That's right, we're gonna go ahead and update this guy's radio in his Lexus. He's got an old guy in here. This is a Gs300. It has the factory premium sound system in it. We're also gonna be doing a backup camera, and the reason why we're doing that is because we are doing a 4201 NEX. We're gonna be using the Alpine, this guy right here, for the factory Pioneer camera. We have a dash kit, which is the BKLXSK1315. We have a USB nickel we're gonna put in the armrest. He's doing Android Auto. We also have a second USB we're gonna be running into the glove box. I don't have a harness yet because Paul didn't know what to give me, because we need to get this radio out of the dash. So as always, doesn't that sound like a lot of fun? Let's get going.
This video is brought to you by The Boring Life of Dean and Haley, now showing on...
Is it Bluetooth?
It's a Bluetooth, man.
Oh wow. So check this out, guys. This is a cassette Bluetooth adapter. So it's got a USB here that you can charge, and then you just
on and off right here.
Oh yeah, the on and off switch. And then you just slide it into your cassette player, pair your phone to it. You have Bluetooth in your old school cassette deck. That's insane. Now normally you wouldn't have to take this out to replace the radio, but because we're gonna put the USB in the armrest, we're gonna go ahead and remove it because it's in the way. Hey Fernando, hop in here for a second. In this dash, there is what looks like a 1761, and it is, but it's not an actual usable 1761. This car is one of these oddball cars that this guy here is typically the rear speaker is actually the power plug, and then there's another in the rear to bypass the amplifier. Now this car and SC400 are very similar in age and body make, and I have notes on the SC400. It is the exact same pin configuration and color. According to my notes, the rear, there's another 1761 where all the speakers are, so we're going to have to bypass this system. Sounds like a lot of fun. All right, I'm gonna try to find the amplifier now, see if it's in the back like it is in those. Maybe up behind the glove box as well. Alright, so we have the amplifier located up here behind the glove box. And my notes were correct. It is a standard 1761 harness here and standard Toyota colors. So that's a bonus. The only downside to this whole thing is we're not going to be able to retain the factory subwoofer without adding some kind of a small amplifier. So now I need to go talk to the customer and see if that's anything he's interested in, and we'll go from there. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go with the KTP 445 Universal Alpine Amplifier. We're gonna run it in 3-channel modes. We're gonna put channels 1 and 2 on the front. We're gonna put channels 3 and 4, we're gonna bridge them to power the factory subwoofer. We're gonna go ahead and put it in the factory amplifier's location. So that'll be awesome there. We've got two 1761 harnesses because we have to remake some harnesses. So let's go ahead and get over to the bench and start figuring out what needs to go where and what harnesses, you know, we need to repin and make. So we're gonna grab our first 1761 harness here. What we want, the rear. We're gonna be using this guy here, but we're gonna need the wires off of this guy here. We're gonna depin this whole harness first. Alright, so for those of you keeping track at home, what we have is the rear speaker plug. There's a slit right here. We're going to start in the corner here, and that first one is going to be accessory. We're going to go down one, and then we're going to move over one, and that will be constant 12 volts. Then number 4 next to that will be the illumination. Then we'll skip one and go up one, and that will be your ground. This is what we end up with here. The 2 top are accessory and ground, and the 2 middle are going to be constant 12 volts and illumination. And that's what we have. For this set of 1761s, what we want to remove is all the power wire portion of it. Now what we want to do, we're going to go ahead and take this over to the car. We're going to also take a red and a black. The subwoofer wires are in this particular harness. We just want to make sure that these plug in and that the wires are in the right spots. We'll add these in, and then we'll be done making this particular harness. Alright, so they do plug in just fine, as we knew they would. It looks like every color is where it's supposed to be as far as Toyota colors go. Just to make sure though, I'm going to go ahead and grab my PT9A and my Polarity Checker and just do a quick little check. Alright, we're going to go test it. Alright, so that rear tested right. We'll go ahead and test this one over here at the front. Alright, we're good. Now what we just want to do is go ahead and test the subwoofer. Now, when you're testing a subwoofer in a rear deck like that, you can test it from underneath. What it's going to do is, because it's going to be moving the opposite direction, so in this case, all these speakers have tested green, it's testing red, but we're coming from underneath. So that means that's what we're expecting. We want it to be red. That means it's moving the other way just fine. In that case, that means that we have a green red and a green black, and the green red is positive. That makes my OCD happy. All right, so now we have all our speaker harnesses made. We have the power harness made for behind the radio. What we want to do now is go ahead and get this factory amplifier out, and we're going to figure out how we're going to mount this Alpine amplifier in its place, and then figure out what we have to do to tie into the power and ground that this amplifier was using, because we're going to use that to power up our Alpine amplifier, because if it was enough to power this big amp, it's definitely enough to power our Alpine amplifier. Here's what the amplifier looks like. There's 2 brackets also that we had to remove. Now, looking at the harness, there's a black harness here and an orange harness here. These look like these are signal, and there's a blue-yellow wire here that matches the same blue-yellow color here. Now, I'm gonna guess at this and say that's probably my constant 12 volts. We'll go ahead and check because we still have our meter here. What a guess. We still have, that's 12 volts, so this is our constant 12 volts. I'm gonna go grab a yellow wires that we have sitting over on the bench that we took out and plug that into here. All right, now there's also a big white black wire in here, which appears to be my ground. So I'm gonna go grab a ground also. Okay, so we have our harness. We have all our harnesses made, we're good. Now, like I said, what we need to do is figure out how we're going to mount this amplifier up in place here. There are a couple random spots for different 10mm bolts to go into, not just the ones that were used for the amplifier. So we might be able to just make a panel and attach it in here. I'm gonna grab the amp and see what I need to do. So in the box for the Alpine Amp is a set of L brackets to screw on. So let's go ahead and get these mounted on. On the back of the amplifier, there's a little rubber cover that allows you to do a couple things. For one, is to set the crossover, and 2, to set the input. So for this, we're going to start with 6, which is we're going to be using RCAs. 5 is 4 channels, so we want that down, so that's up, down. Now these other 4 dip switches, 1 through 4, are for the high pass crossover. We're not even going to have to worry about that because we're going to be using the radio's crossover for that. We just wanted to make sure they're all set the way they're supposed to be. right, so we have the amplifier mount built. We're gonna go ahead and head over to the bench and start assembling all our harnesses. So we have the amplifier in the car mounted up behind the glove box where the factory location is. All the wires are run in behind the dash. Now what we need to do is go ahead and finish the second part of this harness, which is the part going behind the radio. Now because we are adding in a backup camera, we're gonna go ahead and tap in a power and accessory, power up the backup camera. Alright, so this harness is all set. We have our rear speaker outputs here, we have our power and ground for the camera, we have our reverse trigger, and we have our remote turn on. Next up, we got to get this mounted into the kit to go into the car. So for the factory radio, the only thing we have to get off is the air conditioning. We're not going to be using any of these brackets or anything like that. They're all going to attach to the aftermarket. Now, like most kits, this will work with a pocket. We're not using that. Go ahead and break these off and then take out the centerpiece. Now because this radio is motorized, you see this right here, this piece, see how it's not even straight? This isn't gonna work. We're gonna have to remove this and actually glue this into the dash kit. So what we're gonna do now is, as we always do, a little testing. All right, let's go through the setup real quick. What's the weather like today?
It's currently cloudy.
All right, let's see how this thing sounds. What we got going on and what we were testing is we are using, as we said, that 4-channel amp is powering the sub and the front door, so we had to do a little volume matching to the rear doors because the rear doors are on the deck power. Deck power is always going to be louder right out of the gate than an amplifier, so we're trying to balance between those two. Yeah, and then of course turn on the high pass crossovers so that everything sounds really, really good for a bunch of old factory speakers. So now all we gotta do is finish getting this dash back together and get this car out of here. All right, so the last thing we're gonna do is a software update. And you might be wondering why the USB is in the glove box. He's an Android user, so the center console is for Android Auto. The glove box is gonna be the CarPlay and updates. That's what the Alpine looks like. Does a really nice job of mounting that Pioneer camera. So if you want to do the same, pick yourself up one. Okay. There you go. Yeah, it looks nice.
So dark out.
Yeah, it's dark. It's time to go home. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna let you go. Thanks as always for watching. You guys have a great night. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
On to the next one.